Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, folks. How you doing? It's Danny Tisdale, and it is, of course, the Danny Tisdale Show, and I'm that guy, Danny Tisdale. I really hope that you all are doing well. No matter what you may be dealing with, I hope you're having a good day as you deal with it. And as we always do, hit us up on social media at Harlem World Magazine. Just put that in your, social media bar and hit us up with questions, response, anything you'd like to talk about. And what we try to do, and what we do is speak to leaders, legends, and trailblazers as we celebrate Harlem. And it's the greatest community in the world. And we have, I guess you could say, some trailblazers that we're going to speak to today because they, thank the heavens, they're here with us today as they live through surviving the virus. And we have a unique opportunity to have this conversation. One of them is Jacqueline Orange, who is owner and operator of Taste Harlem Food and Cultural Tours, tasteofharlem.com, and James Archer, who is a legislative representative. How are you both doing, Jackie and James?
I'm doing well at this time.
All things considered, pretty damn good.
Oh, I am so glad on so many levels, and I want to get right into it and again say that it's I'm glad that you are doing well and that we're able to have this conversation because as we spoke a little earlier, some people they have it and they are like you here to talk about it and tell their story about it, and then there's some people that it hits them, and we no longer have them in 48 hours or maybe even longer. But Jackie, for you, who was the first person that you called when you realized that you had the virus, or afterwards, or before? I guess you couldn't do it when you had it, and I understand that both of you still have it. And I just want to start with you, Jackie.
Well, I called a girlfriend of mine because each day I felt a different symptom. I had a little sore throat, then I had a headache, and I just thought, sometimes I could get rid of my headaches if I drink water. But it continued on, and then so that was like Monday, Tuesday. Then that Thursday, I had a little heaviness on my chest. And I spoke to a girlfriend, and she said, you need to increase your vitamins. So I started taking additional vitamins, and that Saturday I had a cough. And I said, oh, my God, I think I have this virus. I wonder if I have it. And so another friend of mine had called me from D.C., and they said, you need to go to ER. But I was concerned about going to ER because I thought if I go to ER, I'm going to get it in New York City. And I thought about it, and then I came up with an idea. I said, I know which ER I'm going to go to. And I called them, and they said it wasn't too crowded, but that could change in 5 minutes. And I just went over there, and they triaged me, and then they gave me the COVID test. And 48 hours later, I had the results.
Wow. And so what today is, we're in May. How long ago was that?
That was when I got the test. I was tested on March 29th. Okay.
And when did you start having these symptoms?
It was, I would say, March 23rd.
Wow. So was that the same for you, James, or different in some ways?
So it's a little different. I started feeling sick on the morning of March 18th. I started, just full body kind of weakness, just all around lousiness. And in that evening, I was like, let me take my temperature, and it was like 101. And I got to be real, I knew at that moment I had COVID. You're not going to randomly have a fever during a pandemic in New York City. I think also. I've been working on it through my job pretty directly. So, I pretty much assumed it, and I I was on a work call, at my end of day work call, and I let them know that I had a fever, and they all, pretty much knew the same thing.
So, do you know? This is a question from that someone sent me. So I hadn't prepared you for it, but do you know how you received the virus? Who may have given it to you, or I'm just curious. I guess they are too. Jackie or James?
No, you go ahead, Jackie.
Well, I believe I got it from the laundromat because I go to a very small laundromat, and there was someone in there that was a delivery person for Groupon, Grubhub, and all these different places. And we were talking a little too closely. And within 3 days later, I started having symptoms.
Wow. That quick. So similar for you, James, or?
So I can say, because we have this incubation period where you're not showing any symptoms, it's impossible to really nail it down unless you're in full quarantine. And in the week before, I was still going into the office because we had only started working from home the week that I got sick. I mean, prior, in the previous week, I was going to the gym, I was going on the subway, I was going to restaurants, I was going to the office. So I think it's a little bit impossible for me to nail down who and when I received it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and that's it's pretty scary at the same time because I listen dedicatedly to what the mayor and what the governor pretty much during the weekday they give these briefings or press conferences, and I pretty much listen to them religiously, and it's pretty amazing to not know where something comes from, and especially talking about this, virus. And again, I'm a bounce a little bit here. I'm on the West Coast right now, and in Huntington Beach, people are, on the shoreline and in the streets talking about we want to have the right to go back into the streets, and I know in parts of New York City some are suggesting that also. What do you think about that, Jackie? Do you think it's too early, or it depends on each state? Do you have any feelings either way about that?
This is my feeling on going back to open everything up. We need testing. Testing. It has to be on a large-scale testing. People need to be tested. Everyone needs to be tested. And then you could separate, okay, these people do not have it. Then I also feel as if after you have it, you need to be retested. We hear about other people who are getting retested to see if it's still active in their body or not active. Like Chris Cuomo, he got retested. Rita and Tom Hanks got retested. Why can't I get retested? And also, the second part of that is after people get tested and they're cleared to go back to work, I think some large companies should take on the process, okay, I want people back at work, so I'm going to test my employees. I know one guy, his job sent the person to his home, and he got tested. They sent it to everybody's home, and they all got tested.
What do you think, James?
So I think there are two issues at play here, right? The first being that we see the stats dropping, there are fewer infections and there are fewer deaths per day, and then people are kind of linking that to, we should go back to work. We should, get back into our normal state of things. But what we're missing here is that those numbers are only going down because we're not going to work, because we have the shelter-in-place order, and you could completely just regret all the progress will regress if we somehow immediately go back to work, because then the people who have been safe thus far will be at risk of infection. And the other thing is there's not some sort of clock for this pandemic as, we're in the halfway mark. Individual communities have different time frames. So just because New York City may be kind of reaching the peak of its infection, we also have other cities around the country that have not even begun to have the same level of infection. So it doesn't make sense to look at New York City and say, oh, look, their numbers are dropping, so we in Atlanta should go back to work. It doesn't make sense. And I think that any talk of going back to work right now when we still have thousands of people dying every day is ludicrous, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess it's unanimous. I guess we all three raise our hands and with that, because it doesn't make sense to me. And if my memory serves me correct, I remember the governor saying, if it wasn't this morning or yesterday or day before yesterday, that let's look and see what happens in 14 days. If 14 days it starts going down, then let's start at least talking about it. But Jackie, you bring up a good point, is that, well, they need to be tested also, and then tested again. I guess, I was raised the old-fashioned way. It might be better to be, safe than sorry, and let alone when there's, lives, at stake, God forbid, Just amazing times in which we live. And the other thing, too, Jackie, knowing what you know now, would you have, I know, hindsight is 20/20. Would you have done anything differently as you kind of look now at what has happened or what's happening?
I don't think I could have known to do anything differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had just really, at that time, we were becoming aware of what was going on, and I don't think we had a clear picture of how serious this was going to be just yet. It was still early.
Right.
And I didn't even own a mask at that time.
Right. Nor I.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing for you, James, knowing what you know now? Looks like James, are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Well, I'll leave. Yeah.
Oh, he's back.
Going in and out a little bit, yeah. I was just saying, knowing what you know now, would you do anything differently?
We, as the New York City community, knew different. I knew what we knew now. I'm sure we all would have begun the shelter-in-place order earlier. I think we would have insisted on working from home earlier. And I personally, if I knew what coronavirus would do to my body, I would have been way more cautious than I was. I fell victim to the narrative that it's not that serious. It only really gets to the elderly, which is not the case. We're learning that more and more every day.
Yeah, and and really because of you two and some other scenarios, I've been saying, and I have to get myself out of that, is that, oh, this won't happen to me. It happens to other people, and so I got over that real quickly, and I continue to, now I'm probably overwashing my hands and overly conscious of what to do and what not to do, and maybe overly might be the wrong word also, but there just seems to be so many lessons to be learned here. And I know, again, here I am on the West Coast, and let's say I needed to be tested. I really don't know where to go to be tested.
Can I tell you a story on that, Danny?
Please.
So I told you I got sick on Wednesday, March 18th, and the following Sunday, this is after 5 days of consistent fevers, of body aches, of fatigue, where I pretty much knew I had coronavirus. I went into my local city MD because I was like, I heard that they were testing people with symptoms. So I went in. They initially gave me an influenza test, which obviously came back negative, even though I told them I had already had the flu this season. So it came back negative. And then they diagnosed me with a cold because they said a cold can lead to fevers. And they sent me on my way with nothing. They said they couldn't test me for the coronavirus unless I needed to be hospitalized, which incidentally I was 2 days later.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I got to echo what Jackie said. It's all about the testing. People need to know if they are sick, if they've been sick, and so they can act accordingly.
Yeah, and that's right on. And I'm going to do a quick station ID and come back to you both. But I wanted to I understand the tests. I understand the masks being made, at least earlier on in the process, were coming from China. And I wanted to see if you had any response to that after I let our listeners know they're listening to the Danny Tisdale Show on Harlem World Radio. Harlem World Magazine is an independently owned company, so please hit the orange patron button below and support what we do and hit us up and like us on our social media. But, I just wanted to respond of, the chain of supply at least went for masks. I'm sorry, not for masks, but for masks early on seemed to be coming from China. Do we need to look at our of kind of going back to buying from the U.S.? It was made in U.S. Any response to that? I'm just curious how you might feel. It might be, overly political to talk about, but I'm just curious how you feel. You don't even have to respond if you don't want to, Jackie.
Well, I think, of course, we should have some manufacturing done in the U.S. To me, it never made sense to send all these jobs overseas that the U.S. is virtually manufacturing very little, very few products any longer. And that even took away jobs where we are always talking about no jobs and all this. That doesn't allow people who are a little bit less educated. It doesn't allow us to feed every level of the food chain, and we need jobs like that. That's my only comment on that.
So, James,
I think
go ahead.
We got to split this into two, right? Because I think Jackie was responding to just outsourcing in general, which is an entirely long, difficult conversation to have. So I'm not going to touch on that. In this pandemic, right now, if we need masks, we should go wherever we can get the most masks for least money. Like, as all quality being equal, I don't mind where they come from because we are dealing with lives right now. And if we can get more masks, we're trying to save lives right now. And I understand people are citing China as as the source of this virus, but let's keep in mind that they reacted quickly and ended their outbreak way more quickly than we have. Like this
is true.
2 months in, they were not having new cases, and they reacted quicker than we have.
And excuse me because I am asking a bunch of questions because time is flying by, and I know I won't get them all in, but I do want to respond to some of what you're saying, but I'd rather go forward and really use your time as wisely as possible. And I think James said before we got on air that you still have the virus. Do you also still have the virus, Jackie?
I still have, I'm not 100%. And if I still have the virus, I'm not sure. I haven't been retested.
Then that's what you were talking about, retesting, right?
I can't really answer that. Am I going to have symptoms forever? Am I going to feel a little different and not be positive and be negative, test negative? Or if I still have some, if I'm not 100%, am I still testing positive? I don't know.
Right. So James, I know you said that you still have it, and so what do you? And Jackie, I'm going to ask you the same question afterwards. So how do you feel then now, as we speak?
Let me clarify.
Okay.
So I think if this virus works, I think we think other viruses does, it's going to be in your body until you die. I mean, we have the antibodies. So I don't have active coronavirus. But because coronavirus leads to pneumonia in many times, which I had a very serious bout of, I still feel the after effects of what the pneumonia did with the ravage your lungs. So I'm winded walking slowly down the street. My lungs hurt. I feel pressure, and I was playing pretty consistent sports beforehand, and it's going to be a while until I get back to that.
Right. So what do you mean by a while? Can you give me a couple of months?
I'm hoping a couple of months. I feel better. Okay, but I'm just going to get to a point where I can, move briskly without getting exhausted. I try to go for walks pretty often, but I'm like, I can definitely feel it in my lungs when I finish. It's scary because there's a lingering voice in the back of your head. It's like, will I ever be the same?
Right. And that's something we don't know. I'm sorry, Jackie, were you going to say something?
No, I agree with him. You just don't know. You just have this little bit of something that's not, I don't feel 100%. That's the only way I can explain it. I don't feel 100%. Like something isn't quite right yet.
Quite right, yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Jackie?
Yes.
When you got the disease, were you scared?
Yes. I was, but I felt like I never had fever, so I felt like I was going to get over it. But I went back to ER 2 days later because there was a squeeze in my chest, and I'm like, what is this? I didn't know what that was about. And so they gave me like the albuterol pump for asthma, and it immediately when I took one puff, it released it. So I take that.
So James, I'm just curious. You mentioned, how you were feeling. So James, did you have that same kind of feeling in your chest, or I'm hearing that different people have different, effects from it.
So my major two, the big two of my disease was the fever, which lasted from March 18th until March 29th, unabated, just nonstop fever. It would be lighter in the day, maybe 100, but it would get to close to 103 in the night. Wow. And that just makes you lose it. You don't want to eat. You can't really concentrate on anything. I ended up losing 17 pounds because of it. But also then the cough, and I think people undersell what the cough does to them. I mean, it's just it's relentless. It's to the point where I was getting bruising in my chest from coughing so hard every day, and it actually took 2 weeks after I was done coughing for that pain to subside.
And is it that wheeze kind of coughing in your where you feel it in your chest and your throat all the way through kind of your system?
It's like a healthy. If you right now, healthy person were to try to cough, it's like that. You don't get no phlegm comes up. There's nothing in it. It just feels like you're like spasming. It's a nightmare, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And, we are, let's see, I just want to make sure we're on point here. And we are, as I thought, have about 6 minutes left. And if possible, I'd like to end in a positive note. There's nothing more positive than the two of you being on this call with me right now and you having the virus. But I've always loved hearing the governor and the mayor have positive words towards the end of their press conferences. And I wanted to end our conversation, if end is the right word. Do you have any lessons that we can learn from this, whether it's individuals or as a country, or in any way, any positives that we could, take away from your experience?
I'll let you go
Jackie?
first, Jackie.
Or James?
I just can't think of anything right now. I'll let James take this.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, I think you alluded to it earlier when you said, "Oh, I overwash my hands now," and I think that, if not now, then when? If not now to be overly careful and overly protective, then when? And I'm looking around and I'm seeing everyone kind of follow that lead. Social distancing, quarantining at home. Even my mom, who lives 10 blocks from me, when we go for a walk, we stand 6 feet apart because it's not worth the risk. And every step we take today will shorten the duration, because if fewer people are getting infected, the quicker we can get back to our normal lives. And at 7 o'clock every day, I know, Jackie, you're in Harlem. Don't
Yes.
you hear the clapping outside of the window?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
That kind of just points to the unifying factor of a crisis like this. It kind of makes us feel like we're all in this together.
Yeah, certainly so, and I think it gives us an opportunity, as my mother and father, born in the South, would always say, is how do we turn a negative into a positive, and how do we, make the best out of a bad situation. And I know for me, it's given me an opportunity to spend more time with my family and friends that I probably wouldn't normally do with my, crazy schedule during the week. And I've been reading a lot more than I would typically read, because I have the time for it and to do that. And I really now look forward to it. And I have to say, too, that I am speaking to friends that I might not have normally spoke to, because I'm checking on them and seeing how they're doing, and as opposed to, reaching out to them because there's a business opportunity or, something else outside of just asking them how they're doing. So I do see that there are some positives within this negative, and there's nothing more positive than to having people that you care about and love to, be here with you and with me another day, another week, another month. So I am definitely looking at it from that point of view. And, and before we end the show, I just want to let folks know that if there are any issues with mental health issues, I heard it and read somewhere that has gone up 30 to 40% when it comes to mental health issues. So you could call 844-863-9314. Also, domestic violence has risen and is on the rise since the virus is not over, almost 20 to 25%. If you have any domestic violence issues, please call 844-997-2121. And, we're at our last few minutes here. We have a minute left, and Jackie and James, thank you for being on the show. But before we leave, do you have any final words, Jackie or James, that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would just like to say that people need to really take this seriously. Even if you don't know anyone personally, wear your mask, clean your hands,
Right.
Share with others to take it seriously, because I still feel not enough people believe that it can happen to them.
And James, before you say anything, very quickly, I remember the governor saying, "I wear a mask to protect you." And that's, I think, what we should think about. And I'm sorry, go ahead, James, if you had the final words.
No, I mean, that's really on point. And just understanding that, this is unpleasant for all of us, but take advantage where you can. Talk to the people you love, as you're saying that you do, Danny. Read, and understand that this too will pass. This pandemic will be a memory someday. And the more we do now to prevent additional infections, the better the world will look after we come out of it.
Fantastic. And I thank you both for being here with us today and being healthier. And, I hope somewhere, down the road, a year or 2 years, that we can look back and, talk about this experience. But thank you both for being on the show, and please be safe and healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you, Danny.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And thank you for listening to the show. And please listen to what our guests have said and talked about, and be warned. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.